Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're jumping into a Figma tutorial that honestly is so much more than just a how-to. We're going to go on a journey, starting with the nuts and bolts of building a cool app interface, but then zooming out to really understand the bigger world of digital design, how it connects to development, and even some of the real-world challenges in design education. Okay, let's get right into it.
So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with a core design philosophy called atomic design. Then we'll get our hands dirty with some fun, practical stuff, like building an interactive navigation bar and some dynamic buttons. After that, we pull back the curtain to look at the crucial relationship between designers and developers. And finally, we'll dig into a really fascinating case study on the state of design education in Pakistan. It's a lot to cover, so let's get going.
First things first, let's talk about the foundation. Before you even place a single pixel on the screen, great design usually starts with a system. And the system we're exploring today is known as atomic design. At its heart, atomic design is a pretty brilliant and simple idea. Just think back to high school chemistry. You start with atoms. These are your smallest, most basic building blocks, like a single icon, a button, or a piece of text. Then you combine those atoms to create molecules. For example, a search bar is a molecule made of an input field atom, a button atom, and an icon atom. Put those molecules together, and boom, you get a complex, totally cohesive interface. It's all about building things that are easy to manage and scale up.
Okay, so with that theory in our back pocket, let's actually apply it. We're going to see how to build one of the most common molecules you'll find in pretty much any app, an interactive navigation bar.
The real magic here comes from what Figma calls interactive components. The idea is, you don't just design one static version of your navigation bar. Instead, you design every single possible state it could be in. We call these variants. So you'll have a variant for when home is selected, another for when notifications is active, and so on. Prototyping is just the process of telling Figma how to switch between these different states when a user interacts with it.
So how does it actually work? Well, it's a lot simpler than you might think. First, you just build out each of those states as its own variant. Next, you jump into prototype mode and you literally drag a little connection, we call it a noodle, from an icon in one state, let's say the Spaces icon, over to the entire Spaces variant. You tell Figma the trigger is onClick and the action is to change to that new variant. Then for the final chef's kiss, you use Smart Animate. This tells Figma to create a super smooth animation for that little blue indicator bar, instead of just having it pop from one place to another. So you see, you're not really animating from scratch. You're just defining point A and point B, and Figma does all the heavy lifting in between. Awesome. Now let's build on that with our next example. We're going to look at another super common UI element, the floating action button. We'll see how a single click can set off this really elegant, multi-part animation. So it all starts right here. Just a clean, simple button floating on the screen with a plus icon. It's basically an invitation, right? It's telling the user, hey, you can create something new here. This is its default state, just sitting there waiting for you to tap it.
Okay, now for the first bit of magic. When the user clicks on it, that plus icon does a slick 45-degree rotation. This is such a great piece of micro-interaction because in that one tiny movement, it completely changes the icon's meaning from add to close. It's instantly telling the user how to reverse their action. And finally, with that button now acting as a close icon, the hidden menu options gracefully animate into view. And guess what? This works exactly like our navigation bar. It's just two component variants, one where the menu is hidden and one where it's visible. You just tell Figma to smart animate between them on a click. It's a totally seamless and intuitive experience, all built from a few simple states. So, building these animations is really cool, but understanding why we use systems like atomic design and component variants is just as important. And it all comes down to the absolutely crucial relationship between design and development. The best way to think about it is like an architect and a construction crew. The designer is the architect. They're focused on the blueprint, the user's experience, the visual style, how everything should feel and behave. The developer is the construction crew. They take that detailed blueprint and build the actual working, functional product. And it is so important to get this. These are two separate full-time jobs. A designer can't also be a full-time developer, and a developer can't be a full-time designer. They are two essential halves of the same team.
And here's what that teamwork looks like in a typical project. It starts pretty abstract, with information architecture, basically organizing all of the stuff in the app. Then it gets more concrete with interaction design, which maps out how a user actually moves through everything. Only then do we get to the visual part we've been playing with in Figma, sketching and prototyping. And the final, critical step, the developer handoff.
That's where designers package up all the assets and specs so the developers can build the product exactly as it was designed.
So if this is the professional standard, it raises a huge question, right? How are new designers supposed to be learning all these skills? And this brings us to our final, really thought-provoking section, which uses Pakistan as a case study from our source.
The core problem that's identified is pretty straightforward. There is a major gap in the formal education system. Universities might have programs for general graphic design or architecture, but these highly specialized modern fields like UI, UX, and product design are often just not in the curriculum.
And this isn't a small gap. It has real-world consequences. The curriculum can be years behind what's happening in the global industry. You've got the international community designing for things like augmented and virtual reality, while many local programs are still playing catch-up on the absolute fundamentals. And this whole problem is often made worse because many of the instructors may not be formally trained designers themselves, which creates this cycle that's really tough to break. All of this leads to a really powerful conclusion from the source material. In this kind of environment, success often comes down to pure individual grit. The people who are really making their mark are the ones who are self-taught, the ones who go way beyond what they learn in a classroom and put in the personal effort to learn and stay on the cutting edge.
And so that leaves us with this final thought. When you see a gap like this and you understand the incredible power of self-driven learning, the question really isn't just about what schools should be doing. It's about what you can do. It's a call to action for anyone out there who's passionate about design, to take the initiative, to learn on your own, and to become the next generation that the industry so badly needs.